Ghana has been in the spotlight after announcing it will default on most of its external debt at the end of last year. The government is already expected to have missed a $41 million interest payment, which was due on a €1 billion Eurobond last week. Well, the Finance Ministry said in December that interest payments have risen to between 70% and 100% of government revenue. Now, as a result, the government is currently negotiating a $3 billion IMF deal. It is also looking to restructure its bilateral debt under the G20 Common Framework Platform. Well, Ghana's situation has now turned the focus to the sustainability of African governments' finances and whether other African nations are likely to follow in its steps. Some analysts say that there are in fact a few African sovereigns which do stand out due to the high proportion of government revenue which is used to make interest payments. Well, let's get into all that now with Benjamin Boakye. He's the chief economist at Second Stacks, which of course is a tech firm that facilitates the access and trade in multiple securities exchanges across Africa. Mr. Boakye, great to have you with us on the show today. And I'd just love to get your take on what I just mentioned. Which African countries are currently standing out in terms of that high proportion of government revenue, which is used to make interest payments right now, and of course high debt levels as well? Where do you see those flashing red lights around the continent right now?
Sure, Uche, and thank you for having me. Right now, obviously, Ghana is going through its own pretty serious debt restructuring. Kenya also seems to have somewhat elevated levels of debt. And they're servicing that to the best of their ability. I think that they're doing a pretty good job of being serious about the fact that they have elevated debt situation. Egypt and Morocco are also getting a bit precarious on the continent. So I've got my eyes on a couple of them.
Well, analysts do seem to say that Kenya in particular, it may be getting too close to comfort to Ghana's situation. Treasury yields inching up in the country, ratings downgrades from Fitch as well. But on the other hand, others point to the fact that this new administration, President Ruto's administration, has adopted a lower budget deficit. It also says it has access to enough external financing to meet those external debt service obligations. So when you look at it and when you track what's currently going on across markets, what do you see?
Right, right. So Kenya is in a really interesting position right now. They're in a new government. They've made up their minds to refinance their debt as as time goes on. So I think that they're very serious about one, allocating revenue in a high impact way, and they're also very serious about not allowing their debt, their interest payments to reach an unbreachable level, an unsustainable level. And because if I'm looking at the bond market across sovereigns across the continent, probably the most important thing I'm looking for is a government that is very serious, very thoughtful about how it raises revenue and also how it deploys revenue. And I've heard both of these. In both cases, Kenya seems to be on top of their situation. Yes, the amount of debt that they have is a little concerning, but I don't think the situations are comparable between Ghana and Kenya just yet.
Well, then I'm curious, do you then agree or disagree that any other African sovereign, Kenya, Egypt, Nigeria, they're anywhere close to being in the situation that Ghana is in right now?
So I made this point in the note that I wrote last week about how the political system and the way that the branches of government work together in order to head off their fiscal problems. That's critically important. It's the same thing that caused the United States to lose its AAA rating back in 2011. It's political risk. Ghana has a situation where there's a 50-50 parliament. It's an evenly divided parliament. The opposition holds the speakership, and the presidency maintains a lot of control over the budget. So if the two branches of government aren't really cooperating, you're going to have a lot of problems because the executive, needs the legislative to keep it in check as it's raising and deploying capital. In Kenya, you don't really have that level of acrimony between the opposition and the governing party.